Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Ford, and we are here for another video in the opening paragraphs series here on the channel. Today's opening paragraph comes to us from We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. And I want to start this off by noting my love for Shirley Jackson. Shirley Jackson is one of the... Shirley Jackson is almost like... George Saunders and William Faulkner had a baby, and they sprinkled a little Hemingway on top. Her writing style is very sparse, straight to the point, most of the time, straight to the point. But there is a sense of humor throughout in the assumption of all of Shirley Jackson's writing that is magnificent in the way that we have to assume humor with George Saunders. And the indelible character authenticity of William Faulkner is alive and well inside Shirley Jackson's writing. So that I just wanted to get that out there. But the opening paragraph from We Have Always Lived in the Castle reads as such. My name is Mary Katherine Blackwood. I am 18 years old, and I live with my sister Constance. I have often thought that with any luck at all, I could have been born a werewolf, because the two middle fingers on both of my hands are the same length, but I have had to be content with what I had. I dislike washing myself, and dogs, and noise. I like my sister Constance, and Richard Plantagenet, and Amanita phalloides, the death cup mushroom. Everyone else in my family is dead. One more time. My name is Mary Katherine Blackwood. I am 18 years old, and I live with my sister Constance. I have always thought that, with any luck at all, I could have been born a werewolf, because the two middle fingers on both of my hands are the same length, but I have had to be content with what I had. I dislike washing myself, and dogs, and noise. I like my sister Constance, and Richard Plantagenet, and Amanita phalloides, the death cup mushroom. Everyone else in my family is dead. So, what do we get here in this opening paragraph? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines as it is. We get a whole lot and nothing at all really at the same time. We get our protagonist and really not much else, but we have a very thorough introduction to our protagonist. But we also get the fact that A, this is going to be first person, so we have to deal with whether or not our narrator is reliable. B, whether or not our narrator is likable. C, what kind of person is our narrator? Our narrator here comes off to be fairly naive, fairly simplistic, if we could say so. Simplistic in the fact that she is starting this book by saying, hey, this is my name, this is where I live, these are my likes and dislikes. It's almost a dating profile. Do you want to end up having dinner with Mary Katherine Blackwood here? If you have not read the novel, that has a very different meaning than if you have read the novel. She lives with her sister, and her family is dead. So, in addition to being fairly simplistic here, we're getting the fact that she is not independent. In that last sentence there, everyone else in my family is dead. There's an old adage, I don't know exactly how it goes, I haven't read Chekhov's book, but it is, if there is a gun in the first act, it has to go off by the end of the next act. That family being dead there that's not just a gun, that's a smoking barrel. Why is that there? What do we know about that? Nothing at this point. We know nothing about that at this point. But the very fact that it is not only introduced, the idea is not only introduced in this opening paragraph, but it is in fact punctuated by that statement, leads us to believe that we are going to have something important to do with the fact that everyone else in her family is dead. Now, where do we want to go from here? With any luck at all, I could have been born a werewolf, but I have to make do with what I've got. Again, we're leading to this simplistic voice here. 18 years old is awfully old to be thinking, I wish I was a werewolf. With any luck at all, I could have been a werewolf. 18 years old, you're an adult. Not only should you be responsible for yourself in a way that Mary Katherine is not, she is living with family still, she's also not responsible for the things running through her head. Is it a very adult thing to say, I wish I were a werewolf, but, I had to make do with what I could? First off, what it does is it says I'm living in fantasy, but second off, what it does is suggest that having to make do with what you had, it is possible that, with another roll of the die, you could have had werewolf status. It is assuming werewolf status is a real thing. I do not know what year this was published here. What are we doing? We're looking at, I think, the 60s, right? 1962. So you're looking at the modern world. You were looking at a world in which automobiles exist, so this is written to be in the modern world. So this slight nod towards the fantastic like that lets us know once again that we are in the mind of someone who is not quite responsible, maybe necessarily, for even her own thoughts, let alone actions. Dislikes. I dislike washing myself and dogs and noise. Well, dogs create noise, so those two could sort of go hand in hand. Weird that you dislike dogs, but you kind of wish you were a werewolf. But you dislike washing yourself. Washing one's self is often symbolically linked with doing away with one's sins. What is it about Mary Katherine Blackwood that would enjoy wallowing around in her own sins? And what about the punctuation to this paragraph? Everyone else in my family is dead. Let's get into family here. It's always nice to look at names, especially when we've got quite a few thrown around in this first paragraph. But if you notice, there's only one name that is not connected to a last name. That name is Constance. Now, Constance is Mary Katherine Blackwood's sister, so she is Constance Blackwood, but it is not introduced as such. She is introduced simply as Constance. Constance meaning constancy. Constance meaning faithfulness. Faithfulness as in the type of person that might stick with you despite the fact that you've done something very, very wrong. Faithfulness, the type of person that would stick with you no matter what you do. And later, when we look at the name Blackwood itself, we're going to have a little bit to say about that as well. But Mary Katherine Blackwood. Mary is a Hebrew name. It means rebellion and it means bitterness. It can also mean the chosen one. I am not sure when those chosen one or something like that. I am not sure when those things came into the meaning of the name Mary, but I think that might have been later because in the Hebrew, meaning rebellion, meaning bitterness, we have a certain type of character that might be associated with the name Mary. However, in today's world, certainly in the world of the 60s, the name Mary is quite often associated with a different religion, slightly different religion, slightly more near to us in time religion, Christianity. So there are a lot of things in Christianity which are rebellious and which were not quite turning the other cheek to the Jewish religion that preceded it, but maybe turning a little bit more than a cheek to the Jewish religion that preceded it. And in Christianity, the name Mary is very highly, very heavily associated with other things, namely the mother of Christ. Also, Mary Magdalene. I keep blanking out on things. Mary Magdalene. That was not his mother, but the woman who traveled with Jesus. Yes, the woman who not necessarily though. So there is a lot to do with whether or not Mary is the woman that Jesus saved from being stoned, but I don't believe it ever says that in the Bible. So maybe not that person. But Mary Magdalene was someone who was particularly close to Jesus. So you're looking at two women who were very close to Jesus, but their names in the Hebrew mean bitterness, mean rebellion. However, in the wake of Christianity becoming so widespread, the connotation of what it meant to be Mary means something more pure, means something closer to Jesus, means something almost the opposite of bitterness or rebellion. But that's because Christianity was widely adopted. Closer to the source, that name meaning rebellion, that name meaning bitterness, would have been more pointed, would have been something more pointed towards rebellion from the old faith. Katherine. Katherine is a name that means pure. So when we're looking at this, is this a bitterness that is pure? Is this a rebellion that is pure? And then following through with Blackwood, what are we to make of the last name, Blackwood? It's of Scottish origin, at least as far as I can find. But Blackwood itself, Blackwood, the stuff, is associated more strongly, symbolically, with the afterlife. It is also magically connected with blocking energy because it is so dense, it is so thick, it is sort of like oak, right? Sort of that strength of wood. Maybe I'm wrong. Don't crucify me. But also, we have to look at the literal words at play here. Dark woods. Black, dark, woods. What you're doing is you are looking at woods which are already a source of mystery, a source of temptation, a source of danger in the world. When you're mixing that with the dark woods, you're looking at something which is particularly foreboding. So, if we carry forward and we sort of analyze what it means to be Constance Blackwood, constantly in the dark woods, constantly in the mystery, constantly in the danger, constantly in the temptation. Temptation of what? Temptation of danger? Temptation of darkness? Temptation of the wrong side? Temptation of the bad stuff? We also have another name introduced here, and it goes hand in hand, I think, with the overarching sort of themes of what is going on here. Richard Plantagenet. Plantagenet was a royal house in the Middle Ages in France. The final ruler, the final patriarch of the Plantagenet family, Richard III of England. Richard Plantagenet is therefore symbolizing the end of a house. The end of a house. How strange. So the only big thing we have left to talk about here is the use of Amanita phalloides, the death cup mushroom. They're pretty highly poisonous. I like my sister Constance and Richard Plantagenet and Amanita phalloides, the death cup mushroom. Everyone else in my family is dead. Claudius died from eating the death cup mushroom. Claudius of the Nero family, right? Nero, son of Nero. So did Charles VI. Charles VI was the last male ruler of a Holy Roman Emperor lineage, the last male of the lineage. So we have here Claudius, Charles VI, Plantagenet, all of these ends of households going on right here in this very first paragraph. But another thing I want to talk about with the mushrooms, where do mushrooms grow? They grow in the woods. They prefer the dark. They prefer the dark woods. They also grow on essentially filth or rot, decay. That's where you will find them. Mary Katherine does not like to wash herself. Mary Katherine is dirty. Mary Katherine is dirty in the dark woods. So, Mary Katherine is the source of the death cup mushroom. My name is Mary Katherine Blackwood. I am 18 years old, and I live with my sister Constance. I have often thought that with any luck at all, I could have been born a werewolf, because the two middle fingers on both my hands are the same length. But I have had to be content with what I had. I dislike washing myself, and dogs, and noise. I like my sister Constance and Richard Plantagenet, and the Amanita phalloides, the death cup mushroom. Everyone else in my family is dead. So we have a lot of the dead and spooky going on here. Blackwood. Then you go through to werewolf, the spooky. You go all the way to washing myself, the dirtiness there. Plantagenet, the end. Amanita phalloides, poisonous mushrooms, death cup mushrooms. Everyone else in my family is dead. So it is safe to say that where we're going here in this novel is some place which is particularly disastrous. We have so much end of lineage put on display. We have this seemingly quaint speaker, main character, Katherine Blackwood, who is also sharply divorced from the consequence of her own thought. I wish I was a werewolf. What does it mean to be a werewolf? To be a werewolf is to be... So werewolves are known for... It's a symbol for the lack of control, for losing yourself to temptation, to a primal nature, to what it means to be murderous, not to kill, but to murder. Because underneath the werewolf is there's still the person. A wild animal kills a person. A person murders a person. So it is to wish to be a werewolf is to wish to have lost control over those things that make you human. That is almost obviously what she means by saying she wished she were a werewolf, because very shortly thereafter she says that I don't like dogs. So what is it that's so appealing about being a human dog, a dog person? What is it that would be so appealing about that, other than the fact that what it means is you are at some level not accountable for the nasty things that you do. That is all I have for this, the opening paragraph for We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. If you have somehow found your way to this video without having ever read any Shirley Jackson, I don't really like to tell you you have to do things. That's not what I'm about here, but you have to read some Shirley Jackson. that is all I have for this video. I hope to have you back for the next video in this series. I have new videos on the channel Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Mondays are for poetry. I also have new videos on my personal channel periodically, a link to which can be found in the description below.